This is Boomtown. We have the momentum in this region and it hasn't slowed down.
We started this year, the numbers came in. We are the fastest growing large metro population in the Midwest.
Last year, we added just over 30,000 people across the metropolitan region.
Now we're welcoming people from countries all over the world.
We cannot be this thriving business community if we do not have immigrants and foreign-born talent in our region.
We've added about 15,000 additional jobs to the metropolitan region every year for a decade.
We are now a major global employer with Anderl's new investment here.
That announcement that came, 4,000 plus jobs, that's going to mean economic stability for the region.
When we look at a project like Intel, so much activity is happening out there. So much investment is going into the ground.
Central Ohio has a lot of reasons to celebrate that Intel still sees us as a critical part of the future.
It's an exciting time to be here, but also at the same time, we know we have more work to do.
We are currently in a housing shortage.
Property taxes are going up because of the overall lack of housing.
And we need 200,000 more units over the next 10 years, but Zone 8 is critically important, as is LinkUs, to making sure that we deal with this supply crisis.
When you look at pairing up zoning reform with LinkUs, these are areas that sort of match each other, right? These are areas that we want to see more high-density development.
Boomtowns are places that are creating new opportunities for all of their residents.
Boomtown means to me that tomorrow is going to be a better day. The future is still ahead of us, and our best days are tomorrow and the day after that.
Hi there, I'm 10 TV's Angela Ann. We are celebrating 1 year in Boomtown, a year of stories about Central Ohio's rapid growth, how it's reshaping our communities and impacting your life. And in just that short time, the changes are clear. We've realized it's not just more people moving here. They're coming from all around the world and truly transforming Central Ohio into a global region.
We have a very predictable growth pattern, but the components of that growth shift over time. But in the last 4 years, 71% of our metropolitan growth has been due to the arrival of international populations from across the world. But the Midwest has not been a destination for new Americans. Columbus is becoming that destination because of the economic opportunity that is in this region.
Immigrants and refugees have really been the lifeblood of Central Ohio's economy.
They love to be here. They want to be here. They want to contribute.
You can see, say, the northeast side of Columbus, where immigrants and refugees have totally revitalized that whole Morse Road, 161 corridor with restaurants and small businesses.
I often say that in the last decade, of the population equivalent to the entire city of Grandview Heights, of new Americans moved into just the Northland neighborhood in under a decade. When you think about Northland, particularly the Morse Road corridor, a local geographer from Ohio Wesleyan pulled every single business permit issued by the city of Columbus in the 8 years after Northland Mall had closed. And what that researcher found was of the 180 new businesses that had started on Morse Road, almost all of them had either an African or Latino surname. And I would suggest that Morse Road in Northland has one of the lowest commercial vacancy rates of anywhere across the metropolitan region. It has more small businesses and it's more entrepreneurial than almost any other part of the metropolitan region.
They're more likely to be entrepreneurs. They represent 14.5% of local entrepreneurs, even though they're only a little over 9% of the population. Studies have shown that they contribute billions annually to our local economy, and they're filling really critical gaps in the workforce.
98% of refugees are employed, and that's a data that is fact. So it is good. It is good for companies, it's good for our taxpayer, it's good for a city, it's good for our county as well. We have to have data in order for a company to relocate to Central Ohio. And that data is, do we have the workforce ready for it? And without refugees and immigrants, our chamber is hard to sell, or our politicians are hard to sell, hey, come to Columbus, we will have the workforce. But refugees are meeting that need, and they're exceeding it as well.
If 71% of all of our metropolitan growth was due to new Americans and that ended, stopped, or reversed itself, I find it very difficult that Columbus would be able to fill the job openings that we currently have. New Americans are everything from doctors and scientists and researchers to people that are doing, food service and landscaping and hotel work. So it really kind of runs the gamut. And if you look at how Columbus is growing through additional jobs, every sector of the local economy is adding jobs. And so I think that we would really struggle to fill job openings and businesses would suffer.
This year brought a historic boom, highlighted by the announcement of a company creating the most jobs in our state history ever. We're talking 4,000 jobs. Clearly, Central Ohio is ready to work. And it's these opportunities, along with our skilled workforce, truly fueling Central Ohio's boom.
I think what you've seen over the last year in Central Ohio is a huge boom in new industries, global industries, and growing industries, and we're winning. We see investments here like Amgen. We started the year with big booming investments like 4,000 new jobs in the defense tech sector from Anduril. Those are the kinds of projects that Central Ohio and the Columbus region is winning. Every city and state in the country wants these investments. We make it easy to solve their problems, find the right land, find the right workforce, put it together, move faster than anyone.
Just by the mere fact that Anduril has chosen Central Ohio to be one of their hubs throughout the world, we instantly became a defense hub, right? So now when you have a company like that has put roots here, now all of the competitors are going to come because they're not going to want their competition to have sole rights to what's going on in this community.
It's not just the one company, and this is what's really important about our economic development. You'll have a major announcement like Anduril or Intel, but it's all of those companies that supply them with parts. All of the services that will go to support those companies and the people who work there, it has that multiplier effect, and that continues to build the momentum.
We know the global semiconductor industry is going through a lot of change. Intel has been one of the winners. Let's level set. Intel is the largest capital investment in the history of Ohio, and there are shovels in the ground and cranes in the air right now. We're almost $3 billion of investment on that site this year. Public figures announcing, well over another $1 billion of investment next year in the site.
They still have over 1,000 people on the job site. The work is still continuing, and as far as I'm concerned, Intel is coming until we hear otherwise.
Columbus, I'm thinking it was a Reader's Digest article in the 1950s that talked about Columbus as having the perfect economy, that there was no single sector of the economy that overly dominated the job market. That has held true for decades. And so we are a government center, we're an education center, banking, insurance, finance. Now we're becoming a technology manufacturing center.
We have such a diverse industry, economic industry here: banking, logistics, insurance, manufacturing. So higher education, we have over 25 higher education institutions here, which feeds our workforce as well.
You have a world-class large research university like the Ohio State University. Of course that attracts business, and you already see it with companies like Anduril and others partnering with the Ohio State University to make them more competitive.
Just talking about Department of Defense, we've grown more than double in our Department of Defense portfolio in just the last 3 years. In fact, it's our second largest portfolio, only to the National Institute of Health. It's even bigger impact than our National Science Foundation federal grants. We're on the rise academically. Our undergraduate programs were ranked number 15 against all publics in the nation last year. We were ranked number 11 in research grants last year, again on the rise. We're the largest employer in all of Central Ohio. We're number 4 in the entire state. So just our size, scale, scope is tremendous. I mean, we're a $12.5 billion revenue generating enterprise. So the impact we have here economically to the state is tremendously huge. Over $20 billion economic impact. We return about $19 for every single dollar that the state gives us. But there's another piece to this, and that is our connection to all the businesses. And businesses are very attracted to come here to Central Ohio. This is a manufacturing capital of the world, and we have a relationship with pretty much every company that comes into town.
A successful Ohio State University does help us in our business recruitment efforts. But let's also remember the critical importance of colleges like Columbus State that are reducing barriers in our community today with apprenticeships and certificated programs that help reduce barriers so that anyone, no matter what zip code they live in or what their educational background is, has a shot at the economy of the future at places like Amgen.
Columbus State Community College is doing a really, really good job with getting our workforce prepared. And I would also say the Columbus City Schools is making some strides to make sure that we have kids that are ready for the workforce, ready for that next step in higher education and certificates.
Without a strong public education system, it hurts all of our students and it hurts all of our economy. We just won't know the impact of it until they get of that age where they're entering the workforce. 12 years from now, when everyone right now who's in kindergarten moving forward is out in the workforce, that is going to be the majority of our population. What kind of opportunities do we want to give them? That is our workforce. What can we do to prepare them for things that we know and things that we don't?
So as long as Columbus is going to continue to produce a lot of job opportunities, and as long as the housing market, we can get a handle and get more production so our price increases can slow down a bit, Columbus will always be an attractive place.
We can see the progress, but with it comes growing pains. Housing is the biggest challenge in Boomtown, wherever you look. We're building more, but not nearly enough to keep pace with the 1 million people expected to move to our region in the coming decades. So let's take a look at what leaders are saying to tackle the housing crisis.
One of the things I've learned in the last 10 years, I think a lot of folks in the private sector thought of housing as the right thing to do, a moral issue, fighting homelessness, helping to provide homes. I think certainly in the last couple of years, after Andrew, Intel, Honda, LG, a lot of CEOs in our community are now realizing that housing is a workforce development issue, and it's an economic development issue. Affordability has been one of our greatest assets.
The Central Ohio market is complicated to navigate given there's so many different jurisdictions with several different zoning authorities. It can take a very long time, sometimes several years, to get a project through the zoning process, especially given how open the jurisdiction is to wanting housing in the area. We have to simplify zoning and we have to get our elected officials on the same page to be pro-housing. We are so far in a housing shortage that we need to be building everything we can everywhere.
I think updating the zoning code for the first time in 70 years is a top priority. When this zoning code was first put in place, there were about 375,000 people in the city. We're now knocking on 1 million. We have 2.5 million in the region. We're going to add another 1 million over the next 20 or 30 years. How do we do that the right way?
We started with the first phase of zoning, really looking at the corridors, main corridors within the city. That's where we believe that the most high-density housing development can and should be. And what we're really transitioning into with this next phase is really going beyond that. And we're talking about like close to half of Columbus, which is a really, really big deal. Right now, so the 90+% of the city that we have not modernized our zoning code, if you want to build anything, if you want to change something, you have to generally get a variance or rezoning from Columbus City Council. That adds anywhere between 6 and 18 months on average to that process.
Every time that process gets prolonged or something gets caught up in the zoning process, a lot of times what we don't talk about is that adds costs. So it's ultimately the tenant, the buyer, that is taking on that cost when they go to live in their home.
Our code has basically made a lot of folks choose either single-family housing or large apartment complexes. Where we want to go with this modernization in some of the more suburban areas of Columbus is really allowing for more things like duplexes or triplexes to be built. Something like a duplex or a triplex not only allows more housing opportunity within that neighborhood, but also gives folks an opportunity for ownership. We've had some suburbs that have stepped up and changed their zoning code and done other types of investment to bring more housing to those communities.
Just after I got elected in 2020, we basically voted on and approved a brand new zoning code for the city of Reynoldsburg. It is very similar to what you've seen what Columbus has done. They were a little behind the times. We got it done first. But it allows for not easy zoning, but it allows for a standardized zoning. So everybody knows when they come into the city of Reynoldsburg that if they're wanting to build housing or if they're looking to build commercial property, they know that these areas are already pre-zoned, that it's already done for that. And if they go to those locations, they don't have to go before 18 different committees to get it done. Our first instance of dealing with our new zoning code with a very large MI homes development. There's 354 homes, Spring Hill Farms. Normally MI would tell us it would take 36 months to go from the first day that you make that first phone call until you actually get a shovel on the ground. With a brand new zoning code that we were just working with, we cut that down to 18 months. Right now, it probably could be cut in half.
Zoning is a really big aspect to making sure our land use policies encourage more housing to come online. But there's also really important things like the affordable housing bond package that's on the ballot this fall for voters to consider. That's $500 million, which is the most money our city has ever invested in affordable housing. You know, that money goes towards filling gaps in projects. Some of those projects literally needs public subsidy to make sure that we're bringing new housing online for folks that are making $30,000 or $40,000 a year, really working class individuals in our community.
We believe very strongly that if you work in this community, you should be able to afford to live here too. Whether you drive a bus, whether you run a company, whether you have a blue, gray, or white collar, that there's a place for you that's safe and affordable in this community.
With all this growth, it's important to not leave anyone behind. We're talking seniors, working families, and young people, all of them working to find and keep affordable housing. Leaders tell us these vulnerable populations are top of mind as they work to make sure our region gets better as it gets bigger.
When you think about vulnerable populations, one of the things that we do recognize is that we are an aging county and probably the fastest aging county in the state. 38 individuals are turning 60 every single day here, and soon by 2050 we could easily have more seniors than we have kindergartners. And so we know that a vulnerable population that we have to take care of is our aging residents.
The last couple of years, City Council has put aside millions of dollars for our senior home repair program. This has been partnered with organizations like Habitat for Humanity, where we're going to seniors that are currently in environmental court that have a code violation. You know, they got a roof, a porch, something that is a code violation right now. And unfortunately, the way that housing code works, those seniors could face, having their home taken away from them, even though they're not unwilling to make the repair. They just can't afford it being on a fixed income, particularly at a time that we're seeing rising property taxes as well. So what this program does is find those seniors that are in that very, very difficult position and pairs them up with organizations like Habitat for Humanity.
We know as rents continue to rise and as prices continue to rise, a lot of folks, our lowest income earners, folks on fixed incomes, are already feeling this squeeze and are being displaced. And how do we keep people in their own homes? We know the best way to fight homelessness and the best way to support family stability is by keeping people in their homes. And so the best way for us to do that is to address this supply side.
We know that the number 1 and 2 factors that determine any community having an increased homelessness is not enough housing stock. And because there's scarcity of that housing stock, there's more competition within that housing stock. And then that housing stock becomes a commodity. What we cannot deny, what we cannot overstate is that this community needs more diversity of housing, and that also means not more diversity of what we like to hear 80% AMI, which is more of our middle class to upper middle class housing, luxury housing. What we need is deeply affordable housing. What we need is what I like to call supportive housing, even transitional housing. It is a space for us to be while we are working on ways to build up our own socioeconomic girth and our own resources within that. We transition through it. We believe that deeply affordable housing development is equally as important to affordable housing development, is equally as important to luxury development, and I would say even more important, because we want young people to have places to stay. We want our students to be able to traject and move upward. We want them to be able to graduate and find housing resources that match their needs.
If we think about 2024, there were more than 24,000 evictions filed last year. And so we know that people who are housed are losing housing, they're being evicted, and some of them are, finding themselves in shelter.
So what we found this past year is that our sheltered homelessness increased, and it increased again by 7%, which means that it also increased over time, the most that we've ever seen in history. And we have experienced the most we've ever seen per year for the 3rd year. This community is taking care of elderly who have never, ever had a problem with housing and yet have been outpriced of their homes and their rental spaces. We are taking care of a community that single mothers had just many more resources that no longer are here within this community and hence finds themselves in homelessness. We're taking care of whole families that are working. 40% of those that are in homelessness, our homeless shelters, work. We've never seen that before 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when this structure was built to respond. We are taking care of a number of youth, 35% unsheltered youth are responding, that we're counting, and this youth homelessness is gearing up year after year with a level of growth that should scare us all. The Van Buren shelter is a large shelter that we have here in our community. Focus Strategies, in fact, told us that they've never seen a shelter as large as ours. It's not a good thing. So in the winter, when we have over 800 people, 250 plus kids always within this shelter, I would tell you that it is equally as urgent and obligatory that we decongregate that shelter, because it is equally as troublesome as a substandard space of housing.
We work with CSB to make sure that people don't have to go into shelter, but if they do, that we're working with a consultant to get them permanent supportive housing. We also have a partnership with Franklin County Public Health to make sure that when people do lose their housing, that we can put them in temporary housing, work with a consultant to get them back into permanent housing where they don't have to go into shelter. We believe that every single person should have a safe place to lay their head at night, and it should not be in a shelter.
Rising to the challenge and creating opportunities for all. That's what leaders say they'll focus on in this next year of Boomtown.
You know, when you talk about Boomtown, Boomtown could mean lots of things to different people. A wise woman once told me that people don't fear change, they fear loss. So how do we embrace growth based on our values, our traditions, our way of life here in Central Ohio to grow the right way, in a dynamic and sustainable way?
We need to adapt to the change that's happening. I think that if we tackle that together as a community, we're going to be better off for all of us.
We need everyone to get in this boat and row in the same direction.
I'm excited that Boomtown allows us to sit down and talk very directly about the challenges of that, but also with anticipation on what's to come.
It's not about thinking about the short term. It's really easy to get caught in the day-to-day minutia of a job, but what you have to start thinking about is, what is everything going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now?
I do believe this is one of the most consequential decades in our city's history. The decisions we make in the next 10 years, if we make the right choices, if we're courageous and embrace change, we can make sure we can protect the quality of life and make sure that we have great jobs, great opportunities, and housing for our new neighbors that are coming.
The Columbus region is a boomtown in this country right now. We started this year with the United States Chamber of Commerce identifying 5 big boomtowns across the country, and even they're saying Central Ohio is one of those places.
When we look at things like economic development, the momentum here continues. Major investments all over the region. Any direction you can face from downtown, you can see major investments.
We have a great cost of living. We have a great education system, one that they can depend on for workforce needs. And you have a community of leaders that really do care about this community.
Ultimately, when we bring that economic development, the jobs have to have a place to go. And if we're not building housing, there's no place for that job to go at night.
We've permitted more housing units this year, up to this point, than total for last year. When we talk about what is a boomtown, it's making sure that we should be tackling these challenges, because we can't just rest on our laurels. It's about bringing new housing online, but also making sure that folks can continue to call the neighborhoods home that they have for a generation.
We must build. We must embrace Boomtown in the right way. Focused on the future, focused on our people, focused on our values and our way of life here in Central Ohio, being a safe and welcoming place for all.
When we think about being a boomtown, We also think our motto needs to be, as we grow bigger, we also want to grow better.
We are creating new opportunities for everybody, and that is why Central Ohio is a boomtown.
Thanks for being with us on this journey. I'm Angela Ann, and we can't wait to see what the next year brings.